Hi, I'm Chris.
And I'm Linda.
We are the Pagets, and we love marriage.
We're big fans.
Jazz hands. Welcome to the Chris and Linda Show. Today, we're going to talk about a pretty cool topic. I know I say that a lot, but I'm a big fan of what we talk about. 5 steps, or tips rather, to give to couples before they have kids.
Yeah. So this idea of having kids, I think we didn't know what we were doing. We just kind of like figured it out, as we went. We had the disadvantage, as I say this sarcastically, of not having social media to tell us what we should be doing right or not right. I think that's such a misconception today, that people think that we have all this information now at our hands, and so we can not only know exactly what to do, make the right choices, and do things perfectly, but we can raise the perfect kids and have the perfect marriage and have the perfect life and have it all, because all these people on social media have it like that, right? But we didn't have that kind of information, and I'm really glad actually that we didn't, because it was hard enough to judge yourself against everybody else without social media to try to figure out how to be a parent. But all right, maybe I'm jumping ahead, right?
Well, no, I love that. That's very true. So, first of all, thank you for accessing our social media platform to get this information. But just keep this in mind. We kind of approach this whole idea like, here's what we've learned. Here's some tips that we're going to offer you, and then you have a lot of freedom, and we'll get to that. A couple things I want to say, though. There's some weird kind of, ideas that people have when it comes to having children. One is, we'll wait, and then we'll have them when we're ready to have them. And what we know from people that we're friends with and through our ministry and the work that we've done is that you don't always get to have the kids when you want to have the kids. And so sometimes, and this is another conversation altogether, but the encouragement to be open to the possibility of life right from the beginning of your marriage, that's a really big deal, actually, because you might think, well, we'll just wait and have kids in a few years, but you might not be able to have kids in a few years. And I'm not meaning that in a horrible sense. I'm just saying,
but that's true.
It's you don't know,
right? Infertility is rampant these days,
it
and
is.
So if that is your burden, if that is your struggle, know that we understand that, and that we will address that in some future episode. But in this episode, we're speaking directly to those couples who. This is something that they are wanting to do or debating about doing. When should we have these kids, or how many should we have? They want to micromanage every little thing. But we want to give you some content that says these are things to consider before having children.
All right. So here's the first point. Throw away all of your parenting books that you've accumulated. Even with regards to that, even this podcast, take it with a grain of salt. And what we mean by that is simply, we don't have your kids or won't have your kids, and we don't have your marriage. We don't know what your marriage is like in the day in and day out basis. So in order for you to make the decision, and what you need to know, if you will, before even having kids is really know yourself.
Right. Chris is a book freak. We have books all around our house. He loves books. He just loves to pet them and smell them and buy them and whatever, But I actually have seen Chris throw away a book. And I'm thinking, like, the only book I've ever seen Chris actually throw in the garbage was a parenting book. And the reason he threw it in the garbage because it was driving me crazy. I was driving him crazy because I was a wreck. Way back when, again, before social media. But this book had all the answers. They knew exactly how to raise the perfect kids. And I was 2 weeks into being a mom, and I thought I had already created a serial killer. So,
well, look, I'm waiting for the Netflix special on that particular book.
Oh, it will be there.
And ministry.
Yeah, but I just think that the idea of throw away the books, that, knowledge is important, though. We are book people. We love books. We love learning and growing and reading. I read and just constantly about all these different things that I love. I love reading for information. And so having the parenting books are awesome, right? They can be very useful. But the problem is when you take them and you think that this is the answer, right? This is going to make everything better. I wish there was a dog parenting book. Actually, there probably are dog parenting books. But anyway.
Knock it off. I feel like we've done this before.
All right. So throw away the books. So knowledge is good. Knowledge is powerful, but it can also be stressful. It can cause anxiety. It can cause you to judge yourself too harshly. And so, what is that balance, Chris? What is that balance between having this information and valuing it and then throwing them away?
Right. I think you need to treat all of this like it's a buffet. And so just remember, you're not going to get one book that has it all figured out perfectly. Even if, for example, the book that we wrote a book on marriage, Holy Marriage, Happy Marriage. That book is so great for us. And it works, I think, broadly because it taps into the cardinal and theological virtues. There's a little inside scoop. But if you have someone who's offering you their opinion saying this curriculum, this idea is going to be universally perfect for everyone, I don't think that works like that. I think you can take certain things out of there and say, that's not really for me right now. I'm not really worried about that. This one definitely hits the nail on the head. I need that. So as couples, if you're looking at what do we do with regards to kids, how should we raise them? Should they be homeschooled? Should we do this and that for discipline, whatever? I mean, you have to find that kind of thing that works best for you as a couple and then is going to work specifically for the kids. And I will say that you can have the perfect plan, but once that baby's born, that perfect plan is gone. And that was Linda. I mean, she had a perfect plan. This is exactly how I'm going to do it. We're going to have everybody scheduled, everything perfect, and it was not.
Yeah.
And
she's
add
human.
to that,
you mean she does things different?
Postpartum depression.
Yeah.
Add to that, our first child. It was the ultimate recipe for what seemed like disaster. And in fact, I think at one point Linda was thinking that maybe that's all we'll have is just one child because it was so hard and so crazy.
Yeah. I mean, one child is enough to knock you on your butt. And people always say, "Oh, I only have 3." It only takes one. It takes one to change your world forever, which we'll get to that point in a minute. But again, back to this idea of knowledge. I would even suggest that in this day and age, knowing what I know now about myself, knowing what I know about raising a family, mental health, all of that, I would say if you want to learn and read a book, I would invest your knowledge in your learning about yourself, knowing who you are. Where did you come from? What attachment styles do you have? How do you parent within that attachment style? That kind of stuff, learning about you, and then also growing in your relationship with God. Those are the two knowledges that I think is the foundation for being a good parent. It's not I'm going to have them sleep this long, or I'm going to use this technique or whatever. It's about you. So bring into parenting the best version of you and get that from your own self-knowledge and knowledge of God.
What I also want to say with regards to this idea of kind of a buffet style approach and knowing yourself is that you have the freedom to change things up. If it's not working for you 6 months later, a year later, then good, fine. You know that about yourself. You know that about your child. Then it's okay. Like that's what I'm trying to say is that you have to throw away this idea that this particular book is going to be perfect for the entirety of my whole kid's life or my whole parenting experience. And this is the other thing is that book might be perfect for kid 1, but once you have kid 2,
right,
everything changes. And so just be willing to just pick and choose so that you can kind of create your own salad, if you will.
When you say buffet, though, I think immediately of Chinese buffet.
Oh, I think of things like, what was that? Like, you could go and there was all it was like those family buffet kind of places. That we
right.
would go
Yeah.
to.
They have the fried chicken
Right,
and the dumplings, like all the Southern home food. Yeah. Okay. Point number 2.
You know what? You're not going to have your forever furniture, so don't even. Like, there's no need for you to go to Raymore and Flanagan and get your forever furniture. It's not going to happen. You, for the first few years of having kids, honestly, you would do yourself a service just to buy the old school, almost like hardwood antique type of, dresser, hutches, whatever, because those kids are going to draw on it, like they're going to break it. They're going to, wear and tear it down. You need something that's going to last. Not a big, huge slight and slam, but IKEA furniture is not a great idea for your beginning first child, But ultimately, you need something that's not just flimsy particle board and, hard cardboard.
But I sympathize with this point. I love decor. I love the aesthetics of a beautiful room, things looking nice. You like that too. We have very different tastes in that. But there's something very calming and peaceful and makes me happy to decorate a room and to have nice things. So that is probably a good amount of our listeners who want that as well. So the idea that I'm going to go to Goodwill and buy a stained up couch is cringeworthy for a lot of people, right?
That makes me, when you use the word stained up couch, that doesn't really resonate with me.
But we've all been there. Literally right now, a couch in our living room is from Goodwill, and it's awesome. We get lots of compliments on it. It wasn't stained up, but it's super, super old. I keep sitting on it thinking it's going to collapse. It's going to bottom out at some point. But it's cool. So again, I think the idea is that you have those nice things, have the things that you think make you happy. Right. But understand that in the end, what you're investing in is in lives that will go with you to eternity. The investment that you put into your time, the investment of money, the investment of energy, all of those things have the better return when they're invested into a life of a child or just another human person, really. That has a better return than the money you spend on your furniture, on your decor. And so, again, I understand that tension. I have that too. I have that. I still, after all these years, have that tension of I want nice things. But dang it, we still can't have nice things. Our grandchildren ruin them. Our dogs chew them to pieces. We just cannot still have nice things. And it's a okay sacrifice. It is. So I think that's in this point, let go of that and be okay with that sacrifice. If you want to have the nice things, but understand that there may be a sacrifice in there at some point and be okay with that.
Right. It's temporal. I think that's the thing. When it comes to stuff, it's temporal. Electronics, gadgets, gizmos, even decor, it's temporal. So don't go into it thinking this is it. Now we're good. And you don't want to have to be paying off a bill from something that 3 years ago was already obsolete or broken. Right. So keep that in mind. The third point is to be a good model. It's kind of like, for me, I like to call it in a way like the sponge effect. Your kids are going to talk like you, act like you, be like you because they're picking it up. So what you do want to see in your children, you need to model and live. And what you don't, you need to be real careful. And I guarantee you have that one moment where you completely implode and fail. And that's the thing that they pick up on. It's hilarious and awesome. And I actually take great joy and pleasure in watching parents dealing with their small little children who are doing something, saying something, being something that they didn't really want everyone to know.
Right. Oh my gosh. There's so many stories about this. The things kids do, embarrassing things. That should be a point on here. Like, expect to be humbled. That kids will humble you big time. I remember the time that our oldest, came out into the living room and was like, put her hands on her hips. She was like 2 years old. And I hope some of you aren't scandalized to this, but she put her hands on her hips and she stood there. We had company over and she walks up in the middle of the living room, puts her hands on her hips and looks at us and she goes, "You're pissing me off." And I was like, we didn't talk like that. We literally did not talk like that. We were still very careful with the way we speak. Not so much anymore. But I'm like, I was horrified by that, and the kids are going to be mini yous. They're going to have, in some ways, they're going to have the same struggles that you have. If you are an anxious person, again, this is where it goes back to the first point is bring into a parenting a good version of you, that if you are dealing with anxiety, your kids are going to be anxious. They're going to be anxious kids. If you have a filthy mouth, or if your middle finger likes to point itself north all the time, then your kids are going to have the same things. So be, again, that good model. Bring into parenting the best version of who you are. And then whatever, in the end, they're going to embarrass you.
Right. Remember, you yourself have had a variety of experiences and expressions in your journey called life. And I'm sure you did things all the time that drove your parents completely crazy. But you have to recognize that your children, they're having their own little journey and experience, and that kind of, phrase of paybacks. There's something to that in a way. Like the chaos that you put your parents through, I'm sure you yourself will experience with your little one. Don't be too hard on them, because your family experienced it as well when you were younger. So be a good model. Again, there's no guarantee with kids, especially A plus B equals C, but you definitely need to recognize that they're absorbing things at a rate that would be just mind-blowing for us in our old age. As we try to find our glasses that are on top of our heads, kids are absorbing and taking in everything, constantly.
Yeah,
so you have to recognize that, you have a little audience that is keyed in, especially to you as mom and dad. So if prayer is important to you, they're going to know it. If mass is important to you, they're going to know it. And it doesn't mean that they won't have their struggles later on, like you had your struggles maybe in your middle school and teen years. But the way that you model that and show them that this is important to us as a family is key.
Yeah. I just want to say too, though, that be a good model, don't be a perfect model. Like perfection is impossible. So a lot of these points, we want to bring them up, but our goal is not for them to prevent you from choosing to have children, being open to even another child in your life. But it's good to go into this choice with your eyes wide open and knowing, but perfection is not possible. So be compassionate to yourself and understand that you'll figure it out, just like as a parent of dogs. We'll figure it out. All right, so point number 4.
Sex will change, or so I've heard.
It definitely has changed, right? So you start out young and
with the metabolism,
and then all of a sudden, I have clients who sit across from me in session when I work with couples, and this is even without couples, even if I'm working with someone individual who is married or in a relationship, this is a constant point that things, their sex life has changed. And if you look at their life, you recognize, okay, well, you just had a baby 2 years ago, and that was the third. And, so like children change the dynamics of your energy, the dynamics of a relationship. What kind of time do you have to spend together? And so the sex life is going to change. Now, so for some people, that's a game changer. Like that's a hard no, right? Like, no way. I don't want to let go of this physical intimacy, the level of that, the quality of that, in order to bring in children into the world. But again, I think our mentality is everything in the end is worth it. Again, that this is a sacrifice, just like are you going to sacrifice your furniture? Are you going to sacrifice your body, right? This is a part of sacrifice. All marriage or children causes sacrifice, but it doesn't have to be the end of something.
Actually, what I would say is that even though, yes, it will change, the sex will change after you have children, there's something about that that's really important here, because the intimacy between a couple, that sexual intimacy, is meant to disclose and show the entirety of myself is given to you. The entirety of myself is given to you. And then from a Catholic Church's perspective, right, we say that this intimacy is meant to be unitive and procreative. That doesn't mean, of course, that every time that there's intimacy, physical intimacy, that you have a child, but there has to be an openness to that possibility. This intimacy is reflecting that fecundity or that life-giving reality of who God is. and that eternal yes, if you will. And so for us, when we say that yes to one another, the child is not now that intimacy is stopped. But what it does is it almost invites greater sacrifice, greater willingness of giving yourself to one another that is inclusive of that physical intimacy, but also inclusive of things like, I'll get up and feed the baby, or I'll get up and change the baby's diaper. And so what I think it is an invitation to selflessness. And that's why I think it's really important actually for the sex life of a couple with new children is to recognize sex was never meant to be a self-gratifying act anyways. Yes, there are personal gratifications that are at work, obviously, but it's meant to be a complete gift of self from one to the other, this intimacy, this union. And that now is, you're sharing this, laying down your life in this self-gift now. But if mom is the only one doing that and he is just wanting that self-gratifying moment, it's going to be hard to have that intimacy and that connection because mom's worn out and she's tired, and physically her metabolism, body, your body's changing. The midlife crisis book. I mean, there's this reality at work here, but if the husband is at work participating and lightening the load of this beautiful, unique being that's come from that love of the couple, then that intimacy can still be, and realistically could be even more profound now, because you're sharing in a selfless yes towards this child, and it brings you even closer together. This is a little idealistic, and I'm not discounting the fact that there can be tensions and struggles, but you're not a newlywed anymore. You're not a post-teen adventuring into this intimacy. You are, a young parent now, and all that means is that business as usual is no longer business as usual.
Right. Like, I think that's an important thing that you said, that there's a lot of idealism in what you were saying, right? But all of it, in order to get to the other side of difficult times, requires work and communication and understanding and compassion. But I also want to make a note on this point that there are a lot of things in life that will come along that will change your sex life. Illness, your mother-in-law living in the room next door to you.
Quiet down.
Change your work, right? Somebody could have a job change that requires you to live in a different town for a short time. All of these things, there's so many other things that can come into your life that will affect your sex life. And I just think of all of those things that could make your sex life change. Having a child is the most eternally valuable change.
That's good.
And so there's so much fear associated with people wanting to have children or having children in general. Like, there's so much fear there. And I think one of the biggest fears is the way it changes a relationship, and changes especially the physical aspect of the relationship. But like I said, other things will do that too, but this one's worthwhile.
All right. And the fifth point is you got to have faith. Really, at the end of the day, for those of you who are faith-filled, followers of Christ, you have to recognize that this is not some sort of a condiment to your life. This is not some sort of a small little deviation and pit stop. This is hopefully the reality of who you are. In fact, the Catechism is going to say that the human person is a religious being. If you are spending all of your time, prepping financially and prepping physically, you're eating the right things, you're saying no to the wrong things, all that, by the way, is great. But if you're not prepping yourself spiritually, then you're going to have a harder time when it comes to this whole child rearing thing, because we were made to be really spiritual beings. That's kind of how we are, and now you have the chance to pour that deeper intimacy into to pour that deeper intimacy. I want to say, this is a great point. You're gonna make that point in just a second when the dogs stop barking, but
I have said, I have been a firm believer for many years that having children is easier than having animals. I think dogs are way more work than a baby.
You know, we didn't have this problem with Hagrid. Our English bulldog slept and farted nonstop all day long.
He never barked.
He never
But
barked.
this is, and I know I will accept the responsibility on this.
We decided, let's buy crack baby dogs.
Yes. I didn't want crack baby dogs. I just wanted little dogs. But
I don't even know what I was saying.
so really, in the end, that we are spiritual beings, right? And so our faith has to be a part of our parenting. And I think this comes back to you bring the best version of who you are into parenting, or at least the best version at this moment into parenting. And that has to include faith. You said it earlier when on the point of being a good model. If your faith is important to you, it will be important to the children. If you communicate that it's important to you, they will pick that up and they will understand that, and it will be important to them. And in the end, that is what matters. That is the most important thing. There is nothing, and I tell my kids this now all the time. I pray for them in all their details of their life, the struggles in their relationships, their financial, job hunting, schooling, health. I pray for all those things for them. But in the end, what I pray for is that they will know Christ, that they'll know and have that relationship, that personal relationship with Christ, because that is the most important aspect of who they are. And so if that is, it's hard to maybe imagine that as a little tiny 6-month-old baby, but that relationship with Christ is the most important aspect of who they are. And we have to bring that to the table as parents. And wherever you are on that journey, again, not perfect. You can't be perfect. You're not going to be able to manage that. Sorry. But you bring your faith into parenting.
At the end of the day, I simply will say this. My encouragement is for you to be open to having kids. It is a life-changing reality for your marriage. It is the incredible opportunity to realize that all the things that you love in your spouse and all the things that you've liked about even yourself can so often show up in this little nugget that you would give everything for. And that kind of love, it changes you. You begin to recognize and realize just how important life is and how important, that legacy can be. And so, be prepared for the unexpected to a degree. It's going to not come exactly the way you think it's going to, this whole parenting thing, but it's well worth it. And you're going to look at those pictures. And in fact, my daughter just put some pictures up. When we first moved here 10 years ago into this area, they lived in a little cabin, she and her daughter. And now that daughter is so much older, and they've, 10 years later, they've got this whole different world, a house somewhere else. And she said, we've come a long way and all of that. And the last thing she said was blink. And she has that one picture next to the other picture. And I thought, that is so powerful. And that is true. In a second, it just feels like in a second, that little baby is this person that you're laughing with and that you're sharing stories with, and you realize they've turned into this incredible young man or woman, and you had a part of that story. So what an adventure.
Right. And I think if I can add one last tip to this, or one last thing to realize, is that if you are capable of having children, it is such a gift to your marriage. And it's been such a joy to journey these 32 years. Our oldest just turned 32 yesterday. And these 32 years of parenting, journeying that with you, Chris, and not you.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, not you, listener. But having that journey, we have such a beautiful story of just our marriage, but how much more of a full life, having it to share with these children, and then to witness their journeys and to see their struggles, and to, it is a beautiful, fulfilling aspect of life. And if unfortunately you are a person who struggles in this area, that your life can be just as satisfying, just as fulfilling in the cross that you have to bear, in that suffering. The Lord has a different story for you. But we just want you to be, I guess, if you're capable, be open to life. Be open to the idea of having children and realizing that these are good tips to remember, but you don't have to be perfect.
Right. All right. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. And for those of you who understand the social media world, if you could like and subscribe and share and all that, that would mean a lot. We could use your help. It's kind of a collaborative thing as far as I can extend this offer to you. I would love to have any aid and help, whether it's prayer or finances or social media insights. Like we're just kind of exploring the possibilities and really value your insight. If you want to send us a question, you can. ChrisAndLindaPadgett@gmail.com.
And we want to apologize for our naughty doggy children.
I'm going to try to edit out so much of that.
But I thought that it's, in the end, this is who we are. This
Right.
is our messy life. And those of you who already know who we are know that we are trying to just present an authentic,
Right.
real version of life. And so
Right.
that includes,
So they may have realized that I've worn the same shirt at least 2 or 3 podcasts in a row.
I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see. See you soon.